right, welcome back to the calling here at the Fort Worth Convention Center. I'm Tannen. That is Armada. I got a little thrown. Sorry, I got a little thrown.
Here I am.
Yeah.
I look a little bit different than Kel, Mr. Red Zone Rogue. We look slightly different, but here I am nonetheless.
You're both beautiful in my eyes, and we saw a very beautiful match last round between two Briar players, and a lot of back and forth. I really felt like Saint was completely out of those games at one point, and he got to actually mount a really good defense and come back offensively. So really good stuff that we've seen some real back and forth between these games.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of rejuvenate for 3 gained life plays.
It was huge, though.
I am not a giant rejuvenate fan, but it definitely showed its use in that moment, right? Gaining a couple of life, opening yourself up to possibly pick up that game so that you can move into the 3-0. I believe it's 3-0 he was aiming for, right?
Yeah, so we're here into round 4. We'll be getting into a game in about 1 to 2 minutes here. The players are sitting down. They're shuffling up. They're getting ready. So we're about to move right into there. And this is where we're starting to get into the nitty-gritty, right? You got a bunch of 3-0 players. Their decks are probably – you're starting to get the better decks. You know, the cream is rising to the top.
Sure, it is.
The better decks are making their way through the Swiss. You're going to be seeing good players with those powerful decks making their way through because they've got about 4 more rounds to go today until we get to draft.
That's
and then
right.
3 more rounds after that as well. And, you know, you and I have been talking about this, and Red Zone, we've talked about this quite a bit, about how good Briar is, how much Briar we've been seeing today, and I think that's going to stay pretty steady through the sealed. You said you were seeing a lot of Oldhim at the top of the tables, too.
You know, yes, I was walking around while you two were commentating in the last round, and I just was very curious. Since we hadn't seen Oldhim yet in the day, I was curious to see at those top tables, you know, what the sort of distributions were, and I was actually very surprised to see several Oldhim mirrors and several Oldhim players just picking up the wins as I was walking past.
That might be why we're not seeing Oldhim yet. There's so many Oldhim mirrors going on that round 2 might still be going on with some of the Oldhim mirrors from earlier because they haven't found a way to kill each other just yet.
It's very possible if they forgot that there was a time limit and they just kept pitching blues to attack with their weapons. It's still possible that people are like, oh, yeah, we're still playing. Oh, no, we shouldn't be playing. No.
Are you in round 4? We're in round 2. What are you doing? You know, kind of thing. But I do believe, and you were saying this during the commercial, that you do believe that we're going to see a better diversity or a little more diversity at some of the top tables during those draft rounds because not everyone can be playing Briar there.
No, and it actually gets to a very large detriment if everybody around you starts picking up some of those like upper tier Briar and Lexi cards, because then you're just leaving 1 or 2 players wide open to build a very, very powerful, very finely tuned Oldhim deck. And if you go up against one of those, you're going into a meat grinder because they can block you out or they can just dominate you out with like a 10 attack glacial footsteps, stuff like that can get very disgusting very quickly.
Yeah, and Oldhim actually has one of the options that seems to be pretty good against these decks with Ice.
Yeah, he can really control you out, particularly if you have access to the Majestic weapon, right? If you have in your sealed pool, or if you pick up in your draft Winter's Wail at any point, like the moment you see that in draft, I think it's a snap pick, take it, and you can start really threatening a lot of ice triggers, a lot of frostbite triggers, even just on some of the really good, powerful ice attacks that he has access to. Creating ice like frostbite tokens, very, very solid. And it looks like we actually, in round 4, are going to see an Oldhim player up against Briar. So let's go ahead and jump into round 4. Eric versus Peter.
Yeah, look like Peter is going to be our Oldhim player today in this round, and he's already at 3-0. Eric coming in at 3-0 as well with Briar, and I got to say this, I'm excited to see it. Look, we're getting the game started off the way you wanted to. We got a weapon attack right away.
Pitch blue, attack with Titan's Fist. Titan's Fist is a really solid weapon, and in fact, it's very interesting to think about the fact that Lexi's weapon doesn't attack. Rosetta Thorn you generally don't want to attack with at the beginning, but Oldhim you are free and clear to just send it. Send it every single turn if you want and block if you want as well. And we also have a piece of equipment that blocks in Rotten Old Buckler.
Yeah, this is one of the few ones in this set that actually has some defense, and that's going to be big in this matchup because blocking everything you can to stop some of this extra damage is really important because while Oldhim is one of the does have a way to stop some arcane damage, it's not super easy.
Yes. Now we see Yellow Flash coming down, giving Shock Strider go again. Shock Strider does have a really interesting effect that you can pitch 2 into. but only floating 1 resource, so you're not exactly telegraphing that you want to Shock Strider on that instant effect, and generally you kind of want to save your resources for something else, especially since this does have Go again.
And this is something that I like to keep track of early when I'm playing against a Briar opponent, is we see a Earth card get pitched and 2 Lightning cards coming to the battle chain. Speaking of the battle chain, you're getting excited.
So Winter's Bite, I'm sad that he has to block with that. That's my favorite card from this set, I think. But jamming down one of the few defense reactions in the set and actually fusing it, I believe, which is going to force Eric to make a really tough decision. When you fuse this, they either have to discard a card or they have to pay 2 resources. So this is going to full block out that attack, but it's also going to really hit the opponent's hand as they're trying to attack. If he did indeed fuse that, trying to see if he did.
Yeah, it looks like we got a judge call. So while they're figuring all that out, we can talk a little bit more about what's going on. It does look like he might be doing something along the lines of this, but we got some really important equipment here. We have another, Suede's at the bottom here. We got a deep blue, we have a plume, and a runaway. So lots of equipment that's going to probably be used quite effectively this turn.
Oh, and very interesting. It looks like he's actually, instead of pitching to do the Biting Gale effect, or sorry, fusing to do that effect, he's instead maybe talking about pitching to use Oldhim's defense reaction effect. In doing so, pitching an ice card, it would do the exact same thing, basically just murdering the hand. It looks like he's gonna pitch away for the Biting Gale. Perhaps that's what they're working through. Nevertheless, this is one of the crazy things about Oldhim, being able to block and then steal cards from your opponent's hand with tricks like pitching blue for the defense reaction on Oldhim.
Yeah, absolutely. I find that the timing on that is the most important part of it.
Knowing exactly when to pitch into that and when to just block with a card from hand is very nuanced, and it does mean that if you're a good Oldhim player, you can take advantage of things that people may not be expecting.
Eric finished up the turn with an attack for 2 from his weapon, so Peter is down to 18.
And I think because Peter committed so many cards to that block and to that prevention, I think it just passes back over to Eric. It does indeed. And it's just going to come in with a yellow Autumn's Touch, coming across for 6.
And so we're seeing kind of the amalgamation Briar deck. Like we've seen about 2 or 3 Lightning cards already, but we're already up to about 3 or 4 Earth cards as well. So while these cards are powerful and good, this does give you the chance to sometimes not get as much out of your cards as you'd like, because sometimes you're not going to have the right card to fuse.
It is possible. Sometimes you don't care about fusing. Like, for example, Rites of Replenishment, you can just play as vanilla attack. If you get a fuse effect off it, yes, it sinks a card to the bottom of the deck. But as you've seen, these games don't go long. So a card at the bottom of the deck doesn't necessarily... Oh, my goodness. He blocked with an Endless Winter Majestic Foil. That is a card you want to play, but you're okay blocking with as well.
Now, with him blocking like that, is that a signal to what kind of game that he wants to play?
It could be. It very well could be. But he is coming across with a 6-attack Icy Encounter. I love this card. Attacking 6, saying you're going to need to block this effectively, and then if you don't, you get a Frostbite token.
Yeah, I think this is actually one of my favorite commons in the set and one of the more important ones, because not only does it have a lot of power for its cost, it has an on-hit effect to generate an ice token, but also, it's an ice card itself, so you can reveal it to fusion as well. And I think that's underrated in the set, like how good some of these cards are, like the generic ones that attack well and do things, but they also could be revealed for fusion.
And we see the double block there. He doesn't want the Frostbite token. And yeah, exactly what you're saying. Icy Encounter is good in every respect except blocking for 2 instead of 3. With the fuse on the Arcanic Shockwave, so this will deal an arcane damage. It already gets Go again from Flash.
And so is this the kind of matchup where you need to make sure that you're getting as many arcane damage you're getting as much arcane damage in as you can every turn?
As the Briar player,
yes.
you can yes and no. So it's interesting because Arcanic Shockwave does deal arcane damage if you fuse it, but remember, if it's attached to an attack, then the Oldhim player can... Well, you know what? No, in defense reactions, he can't. So you can just push arcane damage pretty steadily. I will say the Runaways does help prevent that over a couple of different sources of arcane. Blocking with a red Entangle here, which attacks for 7, and you're kind of sad to see these power cards go in Oldhim. But again, if you're playing the slow game, trying to kind of just slow everything down, take only a little bit of damage each time, then maybe you're okay with that.
Yeah, we're seeing defense reactions out of the Oldhim player. We've already got a Bucklers here sitting on the side as well. We've got a Runaways. This looks like his Seal Pool might have leaned him towards being a more controlling slower way of going about.
And he was totally comfortable. Peter was totally comfortable just blocking that out, using defense reactions, arsenaling a card, passing over, and seeing what Eric does on his next turn. So yes, he's playing very defensively. He's playing, trying to perhaps, and I could see this being a way to play Oldhim, perhaps you block out everything physical and assume that your opponent doesn't have 20 arcane damage. And if they don't have 20 arcane damage and you just block out physical stuff, playing defense reactions, playing a slightly larger deck, and you play fast enough, then you can maybe just get there in the end.
Yeah, we're going to see. I think we're going to see Mark of Lightning possibly play a big role in this game because there might be a turn where attack happens, you block enough, Mark of Lightning gets that attack through. Maybe it's like an extra arcane damage kind of thing, and it sets up some of the bigger turns because the embodiment of Earth tokens aren't going to be that important in this matchup, right? So far.
Most likely not if there's not going to be a lot of attacks coming through.
Ooh, we got a fused Bramble Spark here, a red one too.
It's a red fused Bramble Spark, so it's going to deal an arcane damage for your next attack, and it's going to, oh my goodness.
His next attack is definitely going to deal some damage, I think.
So this is +6 total on the board, 3 from the red Bramble Spark, 3 from the Earthlore Surge. Does gain a embodiment of Lightning token for playing 2 non-attacks, and then just coming with a red Heaven's Claws for 10, and a point of arcane.
Yeah, no big deal, just 10 for this here.
10 go again, arcane.
All right, so it looks like the arcane's going to get through. So the Oldhim player, Peter, here is going to go down to 16. And let's see how much damage is actually going to get through here because we haven't seen too much physical damage get through this game so far. But I think we might see the first of it come through here. But Peter does have a full grip and might just be committed to blocking all of it.
I think that's definitely a possibility here because you can block fairly well here. Just throw it all down and maybe keep a blue. Throw the Titan's Fist out there on your own turn. And we do know that Eric's hand is empty. You can see every card has been played, unless there was a card from Arsenal, which I don't think there was.
Right, and is this one of the turns where if you might not be able to block enough from hand, you might be considering using some of your equipment to maybe soak up a little damage just to make sure you don't take any damage because this is such a big turn.
Oh, very interesting. So he's going to block with cards from hand, and then into the defense reaction portion, he'll pitch a yellow ice card and a blue earth card to trigger the Oldhim defense reaction, which is going to steal cards and block extra damage.
And with the go again, it does look like Rosetta Thorn is going to get to attack here. The Runaways are going to be used to block some damage here, but that's going to get in some extra damage, and that's a good turn for Eric. He's got through some damage. He got his opponent down to 10.
Yeah, and it did look like he did have one more card, which was a Weave Earth, able to pitch that away in Rosetta Thorn for 2 and 2.
Now, do you like using the ability from Oldhim here just to make sure some of these cards stay at the bottom of your deck instead of blocking and going to your discard pile?
If you feel like you can make it to the late game and just take away all the ability for your opponent to just really push a lot of damage, it makes a ton of sense. It does become one of those scenarios where if you're pitching to trigger this expensive ability and force a card to the top of their deck or block 2 damage, then you just don't have anything to do on your own turn. And so that can be a little dangerous in that respect. But he's assuming that he's going to have the resources to block things out going forward.
Yeah, look, we see Peter actually counting the deck here, so I think we've kind of sussed it out. I've got to believe Eric kind of sussed it out that this is the #1 game plan from Peter here is to possibly run you into fatigue and run you out of cards. I am kind of curious at what this card is in Peter's arsenal. It's been there for multiple turns. I'm wondering if this is like a Footsteps, one of the cards that costs a lot, has a big effect when attacks, and he's just looking for the right turn to kind of turn that corner. Here we go. Here's a big attack.
Ooh, yes. Entwine Earth coming down, and if it fuses, it gets even scarier. But even just as it is, this is coming in for 6, I believe. The red, I think, attacks for 6, and if you fuse it, it gains +2, so that pushes 8. Looks like we're not going to get a fuse. We are floating 1 resource. No way to give this go again unless he's got an instant from hand that does so. Just going to double block for 6 here.
And there's one of the footsteps that I was talking about, and it does fully block all of the damage here, and it does look like it's going to be the end of Eric's turn, and he's going to arsenal a card, draw back up. Peter's actually going into his turn with cards from hand, so I got to believe, we're finally going to get an attack here.
It was an Entwine Earth, Entwine Earth, and this fuse for 8. This is coming in for 8. Look, he pitched a Tome of Harvests. How spicy is that? Tome of Harvest, a really cool card. One that he could have actually considered playing had he, had the resource. It looks like he did, actually. So he could have drawn 3 cards and lost the Entwine Earth that was in Arsenal. But I think he makes the right play here, clearing out that Arsenal so that he can find the Turn Timber he pitched a few turns ago at the bottom of the deck, later arsenaling it and allowing him to survive perhaps a giant attack.
Not to mention, this is something that you need to keep up with more so in your Oldhim player. This is a blue spell as well. This pitches for 3, and this is something that's really important in that with that hero.
It's a blue blue earth card that allows you to pitch and use the defense reaction as well, and it's just blue because you want to pitch blues.
It does look like that Evergreen is going to get put into the arsenal here. He's going to draw it back up to 4. He's got Eric down to 12. Eric's going to start off his turn here.
Foil Majestic Fulminate coming down. Let's see how he chooses. He's double fusing it. Wow, that is fantastic. So, and he does actually reveal the cards that are in his hand, so it is face up in that respect. So if you're playing as Peter, you do know that this is going to be perhaps a very scary turn, but you know exactly what to expect because that is now common knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all 4 cards have been face up on the table now since we have a resource here. The Fulminate is on the stack, and we've got 2 of the cards being revealed here. So now Peter's working with what we call perfect information.
That's correct. He knows that any attack that's coming through because it was earth fused is going to get +3, and he knows that because it was fused with lightning, this attack gets go again. So this lightning surge is coming across for 6 with go again, based off that Fulminate.
And this is getting to the point where, you know, Eric, I'd be getting frustrated if I was Eric. I've been, like, attacking a bunch every turn. I'm not getting a ton of damage through. Let's see if we can get this done. It looks like Peter's going to double block here. Another Footsteps here as well.
Blocking with the Glacial Footsteps. Again, if he's just running his opponent out of threats, you just keep a few threats yourself, and you just make sure you don't die. And he's going to force the card to the top of the deck. That's a beautiful play, making it to where you have a 1-card hand, 1 resource floating. So if you have something that you can attack with here, then maybe you still get the benefit from Fulminate, but otherwise you're just looking at 2 and 2. And he does. Wow, he's got a Shock Striker coming across for, I think, 8.
Yeah, and so there's going to be some blocks here from Peters. He's finally going to use that Buckler. It looks like he's going to be taking 4, I believe, like you said. He also knows the top card of Peter's deck if he was paying, you know, enough attention here because of the fusion. So he's going to have a little information going in this turn as well. So big turn there from Eric, getting that double fusion on that Majestic. Something I haven't seen pulled off too often in Limited. A little harder to do.
Difficult to do. You're definitely right. It is a difficult trigger to actually make. I do think that oh, go ahead.
Real quick, this is important for me. That's Kin, right? I haven't been played Street Fighter in quite a while, but I believe that's Kin.
Coming in with those Street Fighter sleeves, Kin's giving the old uppercut.
Look, I'm a little older than most of the people in here playing this, and this was the defining arcade of my generation.
Fantastic game.
Oh, absolutely, just utterly perfect. I can't tell you how many quarters I have spent on this game myself. It's upwards in the hundreds, if not thousands. Love this game. Love seeing those sleeves. Great stuff.
It is. That's another fun thing about card games. Getting to play with custom sleeves that you really enjoy, kind of show off what you like about sort of just culture in general.
Who is your character on Street Fighter? Now, I'm going to judge you. This says a lot about you as a person.
Does it? Does it really? Okay. I absolutely loved Chun-Li, and I liked Ryu. So classics. I picked sort of the classics. I don't know why, but those were my 2 favorites.
I was a Ryu and a Guile guy myself.
Oh, okay.
Loved a good Sonic Boom. But speaking of a good Sonic Boom, we were starting off with a Bramble Spark here with a fusion as well. So possible big turn coming from Eric here.
It is interesting, though, to note the continued – I'll put it this way. The longer the game goes, the lower these threats are getting from Eric. His deck is dwindling, so if he can somehow survive on Peter's end of things, he could just be able to absolutely just take the threats out of the deck and start swinging tempo on his own turn. And we have seen several large threats, but here's another one, Burgeoning, coming across for 6 normally, but 2 extra from Bramble Spark and 1 Arcane as well.
And this was this from hand or was this from Arsenal? I think I missed
from hand,
okay, so this is from hand, so no extra buff from the Arsenal zone.
Yes, I believe so.
Well, this is a big attack. We're going to see a triple block here, but that arcane damage is going to get through, and this is what we talked about. I think this is what's important in this kind of matchup, especially when they're trying to fatigue you. They're trying to run you out of cards here, is you get through as much damage as you can, but you got to insist that this arcane damage comes through. Now, this is a card from Arsenal. This is Evergreen. When this gets done attacking, it's going to go to the bottom of Peter's deck. Another great card for him, because this is a card that can attack. It can be pitched for resources. It can be used to fuse, but it's a card that's kind of free in the fact that he gets to use it to attack, but it goes to the bottom of his deck, so he'll be ensured to have something for that late game.
Yeah, this is the perfect card for a control Oldhim, someone that wants to fatigue you out. It's the perfect play from Arsenal. Literally, this does everything for you. And when you see a card like this, and perhaps you see this plus some other powerful kind of cycling cards, this is what leads you into a control Oldhim build. Because there's aggro Oldhim as well. And it looks like he is just going to take the 5 here.
And I was about to ask you that. If you're Eric, do you just take this full attack here? because you can't really invest cards into blocking at this point?
I think at this point, Eric needs to find 5 arcane damage and 1 just sneaky point, or a couple of sneaky points of physical. He basically just needs to think about, how can I get unblockables? And this is one way to do it, Rites of Lightning with a fuse if he can fuse it. Fusing, yes, he does. Wow, he's going to fuse it.
This is a big turn, yeah.
Red Invigorate gives +4, so we've got the 2 Rites of Lightning +4, makes it 6, and then 1 point of Arcane drops it to 4 damage, or 4 health, I should say, on Peter's side of things. And if he blocks with a card from hand, then Mark of Lightning can come in and deal a point there. So you're basically down to this moment of like, okay, if you don't have healing cards like Rejuvenate, then you're gonna be in for a bad time. And he does block 6 here. Blocking 6 does prevent 1 or more points of physical damage, but the Mark of Lightning comes in, does deal 1 just unblockable damage from Mark of Lightning. So this is we're down to 3 here. Peter is on life support coming in. Oh, he's going to weave Lightning and Heaven's Claws coming across for Red Weave Lightning gives +3 and Heaven's Claws is 8 damage. And this is going to drop him to 1 if he can perfectly block this. Because if you have 2 3-block cards, which he does not. Yeah, exactly. That's just going to seal the deal. That's going to be the game. So he was trying in that moment to just, in that game, just push things away, keep his opponent at bay, just bleed down his own life total while taking away threats. But there were just too many threats in Eric's deck to deal with.
And is that the classic way to beat a control Oldhim, is to go kind of wide like that and make sure that the arcane damage gets in when you can?
Well, I think we saw a lot of the go tall strategy being employed there, and I think that's perhaps before this event was underrated, but the more people that play Briar and Sealed, I think are going to be the more people that actually find that Earth is very good in Briar, because making attacks very strong with Weave Earth, with Earthlore Surge, playing cards that are already very strong, is just a really good way to push damage in a meta that just can't block very well with a bunch of 2s.
So we finally got to see that Oldhim, like you've been wanting. We saw them implement the strategy that, we kind of talked about this, you and I, at the beginning of the format, that Oldhim, you either saw one of 2 things. You saw them attack, like, huge attacks almost every turn. A lot of Glacial Footsteps, those kind of things. Thumps, is a good way to do this. I've seen that get kind of popular in draft a lot lately, because it's a card then you get a lot of late, goes around the table quite a bit. But, you and I, at first, we thought one of the ways to play this deck was the way that we saw in this round, was trying to be defensive, turtle up as much as you can, try to not take damage and get away with it that way. But ended up not working out. So one of the players is going to 4-0, one of those players is going down to 3-1. And speaking of the players, they're actually going to be taking a short lunch break here, and we're going to be back at the top of the hour. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more Flesh and Blood.